Dart Zone has an official podcast, and I just listened to episode 1. And I got all dressed up for the occasion with my Dart Zone Pro Tournament exclusive swag that I totally earned myself. We got the double microphone action with headset combo. Oh yes, only one of these is recording audio. I am not a podcasting expert or extraordinaire, so I'm not going to judge all the technical aspects of what they've put out so far. But I will say, from just watching it on their YouTube channel, because there is an accompanying video, it's not just audio, it looks pretty good. They clearly put some time, effort, and money into this setup. It sounds fine. So, you know, that's a win right there. My real question is kind of with just the content overall. I obviously don't have a podcast myself, so who am I to judge all of that? Over the years, I myself have thought about putting one out, and I've wrestled with a few ideas, and one of the reasons that Dart Zone even mentioned for making their own podcast was to get information out quicker. Actually, that's the point of the second channel now. It's easier to make a video like this than to sit down and edit something else. First episode is just over 24 minutes. We're not going to go through all the nitty-gritty details. I did take some notes, but I would encourage you, if you're really curious, to go check it out for yourself. I'll link it in the video description of here. My first kind of question is, it's called Blaster Chat, and why? Why not just call it like Dart Zone Podcast? Or, you know, you can use Dart Zone in your title because you are Dart Zone. This is officially produced by Dart Zone. You guys have the ability to use your own name, and I think it makes more sense given what you've talked about. Because my overall kind of question mark about this whole idea is that it's advertised as something that's going to be discussing the blaster scene at greater lengths, but obviously it's going to be from Dart Zone's perspective and more than not focused on Dart Zone blasters. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing, it just seems very limiting. So like, for example, what did we talk about in our first episode? We talked about new things coming to Dart Zone, like the Dart Zone Vault, a new merch partner for shirts and stuff, website features. They talked about how new blasters are coming soon, but nothing officially said in this one. And then they just sort of talked about, you know, the podcast in general. The purpose is for growing the brand, breaking down walls, answering questions of why we did this. Now that I think can be very interesting, and, you know, going into details on maybe a specific blaster can be cool, like especially if you got someone who helped design it and they could actually offer some insight. I could see that being a really unique conversation. But again, it's just Dart Zone stuff. They did drop every now and then did you know that they did a tournament, the Dart Zone Pro Tournament? No like specifics on it, just that they did one, therefore podcast. They also said very explicitly, we love leaks. Cool. And on the YouTube video, originally their channel has been marked as for kids, so comments were turned off, and I was wondering, I guess there's no real way to engage, so I don't know how they're going to gauge any of that engagement. I just went back recently, and actually now the comments are turned on, so if you want to leave feedback, you can absolutely do that. Otherwise, the other listening platforms, I'm not well versed enough to know if you can in fact leave feedback other than like a voice memo. Their setup has spaces for 2 people, and the inaugural hosts were Brian, the CEO of Dart Zone, and you might recognize him from actually being present at the Dart Zone Pro Tournament. I think he was at every qualifier as well, or at least I saw him at the qualifier I went to. So again, he's been getting his boots on the ground, so to speak, in those events, and it is cool that they can, you know, kind of take some of that community engagement stuff from in person and perhaps talk about it. And the other host is Brandon, who I've kind of come to understand as the Dart Zone advertiser guy, like the person that they always use in their ads when it comes to showing off, like, for example, the Mark I, when it was first teased, that was the guy. No bullshit marketing guy. That one. And then I've seen him advertise a bunch of their other pro blasters, and I guess just other blasters here and there too. I don't know what else he actually does at Dart Zone. No offense. No shade intended. I've always known him as the guy showing off blasters, like new and like kind of early looks. So maybe he has actually been going to some of these events and I just completely missed it. I'm curious if they're going to bring on any additional guests, like 2 hosts plus someone else from Dart Zone, or 2 hosts plus like someone from the community who can speak to Dart Zone stuff. Again, it's like it feels so limiting, but obviously that's what they want to talk about, right? They're not going to say like, hey, how do you think the Mark 1.2 stands up to the Worker Harrier? Like, what are your thoughts on that? You think the Trion's going to disrupt anything here? Like, the actual conversations that someone like myself would be happy to dive into, because that's the whole point of being in the blaster community space. You look at everything being offered, Dart Zone as one of them, and you say, that's interesting, and we discuss. If it's only coming from the corporate side, I just have to wonder if it's going to feel organic, or if it's really just going to feel like this is just another Dart Zone pitch. I could be wrong. They could dive into it. They could actually fully embrace that community perspective, hence the name Blaster Chat, or not. I hope they dive into some interesting topics and maybe some leaks or talking about upcoming events that they're looking to host. I personally will just continue listening because it makes sense for me. But beyond that, beyond the super enthusiasts, which they do outline, that is the purpose of the podcast and the Dart Zone Vaults, I just don't know who else is really going to see this and be like, wow, this speaks to me. But I guess time will tell. And they didn't post any schedule for upcoming podcast episodes, no frequency, so I don't know if this is going to be a weekly podcast, a monthly podcast that kind of wraps up over one topic, or what's happening this month at Dart Zone, what's going on this week at Nerf, more like what's going on this week at Dart Zone podcast edition. And if Dart Zone is looking for any guests to appear on their podcast, I'm open to it. I promise I'll be nice.